Welcome to Motherhood in Black, where we discuss all things parenthood from the unique Black perspective of a millennial mother, growing, learning, and unlearning on this journey of motherhood. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Motherhood in Black. Now, as I mentioned before in my introduction episode, this episode was recorded 2.5 years ago, back in October or November of 2018, and I got to interview a soror that I met on Instagram, and I think we became connected because we crossed at the same time, and I'd been following her for a while, and I knew that she had lost her child after being pregnant. All right, so welcome to our guest we have for the podcast today. We have Kwyn. So we're going to go ahead and allow her to introduce herself and share some information.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kwyn. Poetically, I go by Kwynology. I'm a poet, a spoken word artist, a playwright, and an author from Southwest Chicago. I perform everywhere. From Chicago to Midwest university tours, so the University of Cincinnati, University of Dayton, Miami University, University of Cincinnati Blue Ash, and I performed in California, California State University, Monterey Bay, to Germany this past summer.
Oh wow!
And I am coming out with a book,
yay,
on my birthday, which is called And She Will. And this is my second book. The first book I wrote was called And She Wrote. So it's kind of it's almost like a series. So it's And She Wrote and She Will. Okay. And this book is pretty much detailing my warrior story, as I like to say, dealing with healing, overcoming trauma. But I also recognizing how resilience is something that is passed down from within your family. I know something that motivates me very much so is if one of my siblings or my family member, even my mom, went through something similar, then I know I can too. So this book really details that. It's just a collection of short poems, 32 poems.
Child loss, miscarriages, stillbirths, infant deaths are not something that people talk about in general, but especially not in the Black community. So I thought that this was a topic that needed to be discussed. When I recorded this episode, I was in the infancy of my podcast, so I really didn't have a format, and Kwyn and I really just clicked when we got on the phone, and I just let her share her story. I didn't really have too much input, but I just wanted to give her the space to share her story, and I thank her for being so open and willing to share it. It is coming to you all 2.5 years later, but it's a story that needs to be shared and heard nonetheless. So here is Kwyn sharing her story about the stillbirth of her son, David Kwynton.
It was roughly around September when I found out I was pregnant. I just started grad school at Columbia College. I was going for my master's in public affairs reporting, and I just started dating this really nice guy at the time. And I remember because the week leading up to that, I was passing out, and I was under lots of stress, I was trying to move out of my mom's house and everything else like that. And I just thought, it was because I wasn't really eating, because nobody really has time to eat, when you broke. Right. So I was okay, maybe it's because I haven't been eating, or whatever. And I went to Planned Parenthood downtown, and I went in there. I just remember I was just nervous because I didn't come my period in a minute. And that's when the lady came in and she said, "I'm sorry, you're pregnant." She literally said exactly like that. So I started busting out of tears. I started busting out of tears and thinking "Oh my God, what's my mom gonna say? What's my mom gonna think?" And I met up with my boyfriend. We met in KFC, and I told him, and his face just lit up. And he was like, "Wow, this is great news. I'm going to be a father." And right, so I'm just looking at him okay, do you understand what this means? Right. Which in retrospect, I actually found out later that he really just responded like that because he knew that if he responded truthfully, which is the scared response, anybody else would feel,
Right.
I would have been more scared. So we decided, of course I was going back and forth in terms of, I wasn't, not in terms of keeping the child, like having an abortion. I was thinking about giving it up for adoption.
Oh, okay.
And I had a long conversation with my pastor, Pastor Moss, before. This is all before I told my mom. So we told his parents, I told my cousin, and I talked to my pastor, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm in grad school. And, you know, he was just like, go with your heart. Like, what is God, you know, really wanting you to do? And something was really telling me, like, no, this is your son.
Right.
So we decided to tell my mom together. And, of course, you know, she responds like any other, you know, black mom does. Like, you know, this is what happens, you know, when you lay up with some boy. You know?
Yes, typical black mom.
Right. Because, you know, I'm not married.
Right, yeah.
You know, so she's,
Same here.
She's responding out of, like, so she's responding out of, like, fear and, like, concern. Like, I don't want, and, you know, I felt like she was disappointed by me, like, really throughout, like, the pregnancy.
Oh, wow.
So the pregnancy continued, you know, and the family, because I had just started dating my ex at the time, the family didn't really know each other, right? And so that was another, I started essentially like living with his family for the majority of the pregnancy because, you know, we were officially family by then. Like, he needs to get rid of me.
Right, we're stuck.
And so he proposed to me September. October, I'm sorry. October, like the next month. But I still had this taste in my mouth that knew it wasn't really for real. Like, I knew I knew we had to be together, but I didn't know if he really wanted to be with me. And during that time, like, our relationship was very, our relationship, I think, very manipulative. And he was a young man that was still trying to figure out his purpose or whatever. And so he was in this place where he was still being defined by other people. And in Chicago, as a creative, like, it's very easy to fall into that trap. Like, okay, I need verification from other people, you know, to know that my poetry is good, to know that my music is good. And that's where he was at. And because I loved him so much, I gave him more than I ever did to myself or to anybody, to make sure that he knew he was valuable, make sure he knew he was needed. And he didn't really recognize how much I was giving. But I knew how much I was giving because I always felt, like, depleted. And he cheated on me a couple of times.
While you were pregnant?
Yes, while I was pregnant. He cheated on me a couple of times. He was on a few of those, like, dating apps. And some people, you know, they're like, oh, my significant other's on dating apps, just messaging people. You know, it's not that deep. But
wow.
It hurt. Like, it hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt, like, a lot. So going through that, like I told you, I also felt, I felt like I disappointed a lot of people, by being pregnant, without being married. Like, I wrote a whole article for Insider about it, and I got a lot of, like, responses from family members, like, wow, like, you had a baby out of wedlock, you know, like, well, because, you know, I grew up in the church, and so the first thing that people responded, like, was like, what? Like, Kwynton is having sex? And then it's like, what? Like, Kwynton had a baby? You know, and I remember, like, my mom, she was like, you know, what your followers going to think? You know, you're changing a lot. And I'm like, huh? Like, you know, it's almost like she didn't think I was still inspiring women. To be themselves, like, based off my artistry. So my whole pregnancy, on top of that, I'm also diabetic. So stress is never good. So dealing with my toxic relationship, trying to get our families to come together as one, and then dealing with, like, stuff with my own mother, and I don't have a close relationship with my father. So I thought with my father, or my older sister. And so this was the baby. I thought was something that I thought could bring, you know, essentially everybody together. And it didn't really turn out that way. So it was like a lot of stress. Every appointment that I went to, the doctors was like, wow, you have such a healthy son. Like, wow, do you hear his heartbeat? Like, wow, like, he's growing amazingly. Like, my my sugars I was like labeled as pre-diabetic, coming from like type 2 diabetes. I was labeled as pre-diabetic during my pregnancy. My sugars were going great. All the doctor's appointments were going great. It was like my son was like able to like not absorb any of the mess that was going around him.
Right,
and
blocking
so
it all
was,
out.
Like, literally, yeah, he was blocking out, and it was like he was literally a living miracle. And so we had the baby shower in February, like February 16th. And it was really beautiful. Like, we had a sports themed baby shower because, you know, unfortunately, gender stereotypes in retrospect, but it was fun.
We always fall to them. We can't resist.
I just really wanted. At first, I was going to do the Lion King baby shower, but his parents, they were able to rent out a gym. And so my mom was like, "Oh, when are you making a sports theme shower?" And she's like really smart and like really creative. And so I was like, "Yeah, like it makes sense, you know." And so the baby shower was actually like the ideal family event that I would have wanted, like, because both of our families, you know, were there together. They were finally able to meet. Like, my pastor came, and there was a dancer. It was a really nice cake, and there was just like an abundance of like love. Like, me and my ex's relationship was still like on the low. Like, we were still trying to do like couples therapy and couples counseling, you know, whatever. And up until that point, he actually said that he didn't want to get married anymore. But I still wore the ring, you know, like for show. And I was still trying to convince him why I am a good companion, which is something
I understand that. I've been there before, girl.
So essentially, February 27th was the final appointment that I was supposed to attend. And because when you're diabetic, typically, based on like statistics, that your baby's supposed to be like really, really heavy, and they want you to go through a C-section instead of giving birth. But my son was perfect. Like, I didn't have to go through a C-section. And the appointment I went to on February 27th was going to determine, like, the final measurement. Because, like I said, everything up to that point was, like, literally fine. Like, there wasn't, I never felt any pain. If anything, like, I was, like, my healthiest when I was pregnant.
Wow.
Because the only thing that he liked me to eat was, like, chicken, potatoes, and, like, I love, like, my mom's broccoli and cheese. But I really love, like, chicken, like, meat and vegetables. That was the only thing I ate. So February 27th was the day, and I remember I was laying down, you know, on the ultrasound table, and the lady, she was asking me how the baby shower went. She was just, like, doing it regular, like, with the jelly on the belly and everything else like that. And then once she was finished, she said, "Okay, Miss Riley, I need you to stay here. I have to go get the chief radiologist." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Oh, I'm not at liberty to say, I'm just a tech." I said, "Okay." And so I'm just laying back down. I'm like, okay, everything's fine. I'm thinking, you know, at that moment, worst case scenario, I'm going to have a C-section, you know, like, which at that time, I didn't care either way. So he comes in, and he's a guy I've never seen before. And he said, "Miss Riley, when's the last time you felt your son move?" And this is on a Tuesday. So yesterday, like literally Monday, I stayed at home all day. And I was watching Walmart SVU. I was eating home running pizzas. And I remember feeling my son like move. And I remember when I woke up for the appointment, I was actually running late for that appointment. My brother dropped me off. And I remember feeling him move like in the morning. Like, he always kicks. I used to play in my stomach with the piano, and he would like respond back. And so I did that morning. And so I said, "Yeah, I saw him move this morning." And he said, "Well, your son's heartbeat is no longer beating." And I looked at him like really confused, like, "What?" And I guess I was like, he spoke a whole different language to me. I said, "What?" He said, "The heartbeat, like he doesn't have a heartbeat anymore." And he turned to the screen, and I still wasn't looking at the screen. I was looking at him, and I started looking at my stomach, and I just started like tapping it, and then there was no response. Fast forward, essentially, they had to induce me into labor, and I was in labor for 3 days. The first person I had called to the hospital was like my mom. And then she told like the rest of the family, and then I called my ex. And once my ex came in, I just felt like the ultimate sort of shame and embarrassment, because, you know, up until that point, I was trying to convince him, like, oh, we have to be together for the baby. We're going to have the baby together, you know, everything else like that.
Right.
Come to find out, like, now the baby isn't here. Surprisingly, again, even from like the first time he responded when I told him about the baby, he never left my side in the hospital. And he was like this whole new type of man, essentially, that I never actually experienced in our entire relationship. But like, he was feeding me, you know, he had to clean me, he was making sure that every sort of comfort like I felt, he spent like the entire time like in the hospital. He never ever left the room.
Wow.
And so when the baby was born, March 1st at 4:42 a.m., like I just remember hearing like this annoying. It was almost like this quick, like 30. No, it felt like forever. Giving birth, but like there was this moment where like I almost didn't want to give birth to him because I felt like one, he was finally like out of me. Like I knew I had to let him go. And so there's a part of me that was like, no, like I don't actually want to give birth to him. Like, can I just stay, you know, like with him just a little bit longer? But then once I did push him out, he came out. It was just like so silent. And my OB-GYN, he was supposed to be there. So I had some other guy who was like so rude. But I think he was rude because he knew, like, okay, anger is what's going to help me, like, keep pushing, you know, through contractions and everything else like that. But after the baby was finished, he, like, you know, took off his gloves and he was, like, prepared to walk out because, you know, the baby was dead. So I think, like, to him, he was like, oh, ain't nothing I can do. And the nurses, they started, like, you know, cleaning him off. Like, they started essentially doing a routine. And I remember one of the nurses asked me, like, do you want to hold him? And I just initially said, no, I couldn't even, like, bear to look at him. Like, because this whole time I was waiting, like, the whole 9 months I was waiting to finally meet him. And I feel like I failed him. So, fortunately, my mom was there taking, like, the pictures that she could stomach to take and everything else like that. And then we slept March 2nd. I remember, like, I woke up and I was just kept looking at, because they were able to let my son, like, still stay, like, in the incubator, like, in the room with me. And then I remember my ex, he said, you know, why did they keep him in here with us? Why didn't they just take him away? And I said, well, I'm glad that they kept him in here because I haven't held him. I said, could you get him for me? And then he, you know, did a huff and puff, and that's when he started turning into, like, who I knew. And he picked him up for me, and like, he was so heavy, and he was so strong. He was 6 pounds and 13 ounces.
Wow.
And I was just looking at him. I was like, oh my God, like, he had so much hair. His fingernails was like entirely beautiful. And like, I never knew that I could actually make something beautiful. Like, but this whole time, like, I felt not only really insecure because of my relationship, but also insecure of who I was physically. Like, I grew up heavy set. Family members called me heavy set, and like, I was a thick one. I like my mom's children. Like, I always had the eczema. And then when I got diabetes, it was almost just like, oh, okay, not only is she just like fat and she has a ring around her neck, but she has a disease, you know. So I just always felt ugly. And so when I got pregnant, I was like, oh my God, like, you know, now I'm the fat, you know, daughter that got pregnant with diabetes. And so I was just like, okay, my son, you know, is not going to be cute. Like, he's going to end up being, you know, too big and whatever. And God, you know, really showed me otherwise, and my son showed me otherwise. Like, no, you're actually freaking gorgeous, and you actually made something so beautiful. And my son was able to finally show me what God can do through me. So they took him away that day because we asked for an autopsy, and I didn't get the autopsy results until like a couple of months ago. And the autopsy results were still unclear. They still don't know what happened. So that was just like not a help. But my fiance wanted us to have him incinerated. So the funeral preparation and stuff was really all a blur. I just remember like agreeing to whatever my fiance wanted, which, you know, once again was me still trying to like please him, you know, whatever. We had his service like March 17th, and it was a really good service. And a lot of my family came, but none of my ex's family came.
Wow.
And come to find out, it was because his parents felt that we shouldn't have had service for him. That was almost like devil worshiping or something stupid.
What?
And so, so the day after the service, I spent the night. The day after the service, I spent the night at his house. Mind you, like, his mom was on that with me, like, after she found out the baby had passed. Like, it was almost like their family just cut me off, you know? And it's just weird because, like, when him and I originally started dating, his family couldn't get enough of me. Like, they were just like, oh, you're my daughter, you know, whatever. But after the baby, they're just like, oh, can you go home? Like, do you need to be here? You know, whatever.
Wow.
The day after the service, he essentially had to sneak me into the house.
Oh, wow.
And I heard his parents talking about, like, why would she have a service? Like, that's some devil worshiping. Like, I don't understand. Why don't they just let that baby go? And, you know, whatever. His mom just going off on, I don't like her for you. You know, they were at the church. This was on a Sunday.
I wish you could see my face right now. I'm just like in shock.
Well, listen, it gets crazy for that.
Okay,
so I come out, he hid me in the closet. So I come out the closet, and he's like, you know, we should go. And I said, no, we need to talk to your parents like now. Like, I have a very confrontational person. I don't know if it's the Delta in me or what, but now, like, if you say anything to me, like, crazy, like, we're going to have to talk it out. Like, period. Like, I cannot sit and stand by, especially when somebody disrespects my son. Like, no, like, and we finna talk this out. And so he's like, no, Quinn, we shouldn't. I said, no, we finna talk this out. Call them, let them know I'm here, and we want to talk. So he sent a text. They come back from church because his parents, his dad's the pastor, his mom was the first lady. They're like, oh, hi, Quinn. I'm like, hi. And he's like, my ex is like, yeah, so we essentially just wanted to, you know, hash some things out, figure what's going wrong. And I say, yes, like, I feel as if you guys have been on that with me, essentially feel some type of way, you know, since the baby, you know, whatever. And his dad initially says, I don't have anything against you, which I believe. You know, his dad starts saying, like, you know, I feel as if things could have been better at the shower. Because, you know, like I said, I thought that shower was perfect, but they were like, oh, you know, Quinn, you never introduced us properly to, like, your grandparents, or you never actually took the time to introduce us to your cousins. And I'm like, so you wanted me to walk around and introduce everybody to you at the shower when y'all could just introduce yourselves? Right. So I was just like, yeah, bro, I had like, hi. I had like so many like out of town friends doing like tours that were coming out. So I was making sure like all my friends were like well taken care of, and my family. Like I didn't even think about making it a priority to introduce folks. And so I said, yeah, I agree. I just agreed because I'm being respectful of, you know, whatever. And then his mom, you know, she was like, she said, you know, I feel as if God cut the cord. God cut the cord. I said, huh? And then she said, well, once God took your baby, you know, he cut the cord on your relationship. Y'all are not supposed to be together. And I said, what? And so it was just like silent. I'm getting up and I'm walking towards her. And I said, what did you say? And so he starts pulling me back. His dad starts pulling me back. And I'm like, I ain't about to hit her. I just want to make sure I heard exactly what she said. And then she said, I said what I said. God cut the cord. And I said, wow, like, this is crazy. This is crazy. Wow. Like, I said, this is a lot. I said, I think I should go, you know, and I started getting my stuff. And then my ex, you know, he's defending me. And he's like, Molly shouldn't have said that. You know, the funeral was just yesterday. Right. And, you know, she's like, well, you know, she asked how I felt. You know, whatever. And it's like, it's even crazier that she said that because, like I told you, she was calling her daughter and everything. Mm-hmm. But she had a miscarriage. They also lost their son, their youngest son, like a couple of years ago. So it was just crazy that for her to allow herself to say something like that to a grieving mother. Right. I was just like, wow. So that happened in March. And so literally the rest of March, leading into April, our relationship was like on a much, much thinner string because now his family was officially like on that with me. Like they did not want us to be together. He couldn't come over to my house anymore. He couldn't even really say like he was hanging out with me because his mom was like, why are you going to choose this girl over me? You know what I'm saying? And he essentially was put in a position of choosing. I made a permanent decision on April 17th, and I had to go into some deep therapy. My mom and I, we have a really, really good relationship now. I have a really good relationship with a lot of my family members. And my family really, really, really came through. And this is a wonderful story about listening to your mother the first time. Just because he told me
a cautionary tale.
Yes, right. I always listen to you about, but no, seriously, like he warned me, and I didn't listen. And but also just like knowing when you have to overcompensate for love, bro. Like it's not. Unfortunately, it's not meant to be. Like, and everybody was telling me, even like the first couple times that he cheated, the first couple times he lied. I remember each time he lied, I went to my little sister, and she was like, "Girl, like, why are you still with him?" And I was like, because, like, he's involved in the shit, on this scene, he's a talented guy, an activist. I'm an activist organizer, it was just like, I thought it was a match made, in heaven.
Right.
And she's like, no, like, maybe I should take a break, take some time. And, I just didn't listen to nobody. I thought I could change people. Which really isn't the case.
Wow, what an impactful story Quinn had. Again, I'm so thankful for her being open and willing to share her story with me and with my listening audience. This is definitely a heavy topic to discuss, and her story is more than just about her losing her son. There are a lot of pieces to her that go in with losing her son and dealing with an abusive relationship and family not being supportive and taking care of her mental health, and also dealing with, the negative feelings of other people, especially as it relates to religion and being pregnant when you're not married. So I can definitely relate to Quinn on a lot of things that she discussed in sharing her story. Now I'm going to just ask Quinn just a few questions about her journey, after she lost her son. So let's listen into those responses.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. I do have some questions. So how are you healing, and do you feel like you will ever heal from losing your son? And I say that a lot of people, and before you answer your question, a lot of people feel like mothers who have lost children aren't mothers or shouldn't call themselves mothers. But to me, you're a mother. If you have a miscarriage, if you have a child that's stillborn, if you lost a child to infant death, you're still a mother. That's your child to you. That child is real to you. So just want to put that out there to the listeners. She is a mother. Don't get it twisted. So how are you healing, and do you ever think that you're going to completely heal from this?
Well, for one, I feel that healing is not a destination, it's a journey. So I'm never going to wake up and look around and be like, wow, I finally made it. Like, here I am, So I feel as if every day is just going to be, choosing to keep my head up, essentially. And one of my close friends, he actually said, yesterday, like, you just have to, redefine happiness. Like, there was happiness when you were pregnant, when you were expecting your son. There was happiness, when you were with your ex. But now, like, redefine what is happiness for you. Like, what else can happiness be? Like, happiness can be so many other things. Right. And so, that's what I'm choosing to do. But in terms of, like, how I'm healing, so really after my son, I started looking for support groups. Because I was like so turned off from the church, like I never had even though I've lost friends, like it's a lot of crazy stuff. I never got angry at God until after losing my son. So I was like really turned off from the church, and I wasn't just about to go pray this away.
Right.
So I wanted to find like support groups and like therapy, and unfortunately, like, the support groups I did find were like all the way downtown. Like, I live on the south side, and so the support groups I did find were like all the way downtown with the white people. And I attended one session, and I only attended one session because after that I was like, bro, I'm not about to be around all these white people, because all of them were in there, affluent, coupled up, and I think the interesting part to me also was that it was only me and another couple that didn't have any children at all. There were so many other couples that are in there still in support groups after losing like one child, and they had like 3 or 4 kids that are like currently being watched by a babysitter or something, you know.
Wow.
So I found that very interesting, and it was, like I said, I was the only black woman, so it was uncomfortable in that aspect as well, because I didn't really, I don't know, I just couldn't relate to anybody else that was in the support group. But we ended up talking more about like Mother's Day was coming up around that time, and like how, because grief, comes in waves, right? And for like April, May, and June, I was definitely just angry, like anything in terms of pregnancy, like, because I still have all the baby shower gifts at my house. And so I had to have like my friends and like my siblings and my family go through that stuff with me. So I was angry that I had to do that. I was, angry that, I had to figure out, you know, how I was going to give away the stuff, which I ended up giving away to like other mothers. I was angry at women that were expecting. I was angry at my ex. I was angry at his family. I was just walking around like very, very angry. And so I went into that support group just like, I literally said, man, like I'm pissed. Like I'm pissed at God. Like I'm just like, why, bro? Like, because I'm thinking like, one thing that made me so angry was because it happened after my baby shower. So the anger was like really tied with embarrassment and shame, because here I was, telling all these people like, oh, I'm about to have this baby, I'm about to have this baby. And people came out of town for my baby shower. I went ahead and dropped out of grad school, like all this sort of stuff, and come to find out like it actually didn't come to fruition. So I was just very angry. And going into therapy made me morph that into just grief and recognize that I was really angry because I didn't get what I wanted. And sometimes that's such a childlike anger to have. Like you're just angry because you didn't get what you wanted. And sometimes, but it's also still valid. Like I have the right. My therapist was encouraging me, like, yeah, you can be angry if you don't want to watch. Because it was like I was watching How to Get Away with Murder during that time, and like This Is Us, and like it was like all the shows they kept talking about like freaking children and like babies.
Right.
And I'm like, bro, like what the heck? Like, so I was literally like seeing babies everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my therapist, like, bro, like it's like as if one, life has just moved on, but two, like nobody takes into consideration like how triggering this stuff can be like for people, So like I said, like immense therapy. But I do feel stronger, like, and to be honest, like crying makes me feel better. Like once if I cry about it a little bit, I feel as if like it's a little less stone like rubbed off of me, like, or a little less from like my cocoon, because I feel like I'm between the stage of caterpillar and butterfly right now. So if healed was butterfly, I guess, then I'm like in the cocoon, but I feel as if I'm low key shedding it off. And so I'm getting stronger and stronger in terms of talking about. But therapy helped, and like my family, like I said, they helped as well, like a lot. Like I'm grateful to have like an amazing supportive like brother. My brother Cameron, my sister Corey, like really, really were there for me, and like my family, like they just listen to me, let me cry if I want to cry, yell if I want to yell. Like they essentially let me have the space that I needed, and because it affected them too. Like this is my brother's first nephew, and so anytime that they want to talk about it, they know that I like talking about him. That's not something I don't like talking about.
Yeah, so I heard you mention you went to that support group, and there was predominantly white. Well, you said you're the only black person, so white women were there. So do you think? Well, obviously, these stories and these situations aren't shared enough, in the black community. Like, why do you think that is? Like, why don't black women or women of color in general share if they've had a miscarriage or experience giving birth to a child who was stillborn or infant death?
I can only speak for me, but I feel it's just like it really does come from a place of shame. I always say for me, and like embarrassment, because after I did share my story, there were so many women, black women, like friends that I didn't even know had lost children. And even like parents, like a parent that I know, because her children and myself went to the same elementary school. She told me how she had like 2 or 3 miscarriages before she had her kids.
Wow.
And I was just like, this is something that every day people really want to, put as a Facebook status or, be proud to put like in their Instagram bio. But I think, fortunately, it is becoming normalized because it's happening so often that a lot of Black women are having trouble with fertility, like fertility issues, like birth issues, like when Beyonce and even Serena Williams, like the woman in the world, still have like birth issues. So it's just like it really can happen like to anybody. Like I told you, like my appointment every day up leading to that point was fine. Like there wasn't you can really do everything quote unquote right, and it can still happen. But I think, like I said, I don't know if we really talk about it because we're ashamed, or if it's people really do just want to keep it buried. Like I think the older, like our parents, like they don't really they live in a very hush hush type of generation where it's like, oh, what happens in the family, stay in the family. Even when it comes to like sexual abuse, molestation, trauma such as losing babies, everything else like that. But I feel like in our generation, the millennials, we're like, no, if I share my story, then that's going to empower somebody else to share theirs. And so it's like we have that itchiness in our throat. That's like, I have to tell somebody, like this happened. And the only reason why, like, I even posted about my son was because I know for a fact that if my son was alive, like, y'all would see him, like, every day.
Right.
On my Facebook, on my Instagram, on my Twitter, like, every day. So it's like, I still have that right, saying, to talk about my child, even though I'm not raising him. God is, raising him now.
Right.
But, like, I still have that right to do so.
And what is your son's name? I didn't hear you mention his name.
Kwynton. David Kwynton, Kwynton. My mother came up with that middle name too. Because at first I always wanted a son, and I always wanted him to be a junior named after the father, because I just love juniors. Like I love legacies. I love like family bonds and names. And she's like, "What about Quentin?" And I was like, "Ew, like Quentin." But then I was like, "Huh." Okay, Quentin, but the way it spells like Kwynton, like, so I already knew if he was going to be called, like, it was going to be that one white lady that's going to be like, oh, Kwynton, like, he was going to have to correct him. So that's why I had a little key test, like, David, put him there, so even when he applied for, like, resumes, he was still going to get that job.
Right.
His name.
David K. Yeah, I understand. My first name is Nikea, so I've been there. Yeah. And that picture you shared of him was on Instagram. I think that's the one I saw. It was so beautiful. And I remember seeing that picture posted, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is such a beautiful baby. And then I read the caption. I was like, what? No, she was like about to have like this baby. Like he's not alive. And I was just like, I could not imagine having to experience that. And that's what led me to like read the story that you shared about. And I remember riding in the car with my boyfriend, like reading it on my phone, and I was like in tears. And he was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I'm just reading the story about this person I follow on Instagram, and she lost her son. Oh my God. So I just think it's so beautiful that you're able to share your story, and you're willing to share your story, and that you are still like choosing to survive this and live, and not crawl into a hole and just give up. And like, I see everything you post. Like, I think to myself, like, man, I wish I was in Chicago so I could go support her. Like, it's just so dope. Everything that you're doing is just so dope. Like, you're still living, and then you're still honoring your son. And I know he is just looking down, smiling on you like, go mommy, go mommy.
I hope he is. I think about that like all the time. I'm like, I hope you don't think, because sometimes even now when I curse, I'm like, dang, like, I'm sorry, Quentin, I shouldn't even did that. Like, let me go ahead and, like, apologize. Like, let me go ahead and get my life together. Because I know you're looking down at me like, Ma, like, go to work. Like, get out of But
It's
no,
kind
like I do hear him say like get up and like
of,
get out the house, because it really is like, it was really that time between like April, May, and June. I was still really like in my hole, I guess you could say, in my darkness. And now I can confidently say, like, at least I'm embracing like the light. So like the hole is still right there, like it's not
right.
gone. But
Yeah.
like I'm still choosing like to walk up the stairs to like feel the light like on my cheeks and like on my son. You know, just like recognizing that there's still so much light to live. And I'm meeting, in addition to like meeting mothers who have lost children, I'm meeting children, like friends of mine who were born after their parents, you know, had lost a child. So that's really inspiring to me, because I know for a fact, like now I want to have kids. So it's just like, wow, like your parents are still able to have a child after they had a stillborn. Like, yes, like I mean, it just gives me so much more hope. It's like, oh, I'm gonna have a second child. Like Kwynton's gonna be, you know, a bigger brother, like an older brother. Like
Aw.
it's just, you know, one day it's gonna happen, and the next time I do get pregnant, I'm not gonna have like any stress. I'm not gonna be in a toxic, emotionally abusive relationship.
Right.
Like I know I'm gonna be like so much more happy. I'm gonna make sure that I am, like, essentially.
Right.
I'm not gonna try to change anything about it. And you know, hopefully, God willing, that He'll bless me again like He did the first time.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing with our listeners. Do you want to give a shameless plug to your website or anything like that? Hey, I'm supporting you plugging it. Go ahead and plug away.
So yeah, you guys can just follow me at Kwynology. So it's KWY as in yellow, NOLOGY. And that is also the URL for my website, which is Kwynology.com. And like I said, I'm coming out with a book next week on my birthday, so shout out to Scorpios, on November 8th. And you'll be able to purchase And She Will on Amazon and everywhere else.
Make sure y'all go get
thank
your
you so much for this opportunity, so Aurora.
Thank you. You're welcome.
You all, thank you for tuning in to another episode. I know this one is a heavy episode and not something that people want to talk about, but it's something that needs to be discussed. I personally have never experienced losing a child, but I know people who have, and a lot of times in order to get through something, you need to know that you have someone that has also been through it, and maybe they can help you get through it as well. Even with just being pregnant, if it's your first time being pregnant and you've never done it, you often go to people who have experienced it before. So one thing that Quinn mentioned that was very shocking to me, I know this was 2 years ago and I don't know if this is still the case now, but support groups for people who have lost children, be it a miscarriage or a stillbirth, or be it infant death or from complications after birth. I hope that now or in the future that there will be, and that there are more groups for Black women specifically to talk about what it is like to lose a child and to have support through that and after that, because I'm sure, as Quinn mentioned, it takes a toll on your body physically, mentally, and emotionally. And it's a grieving process. And although I've never lost a child, I recently lost my grandmother, and that grieving process has been up and down. It's very fluid. It's not stagnant. Just as Quinn mentioned, some days you go just fine and you think about the person and you're okay. And then some days, like me on Thanksgiving Day, I was pouring ice into a bucket and I started crying uncontrollably. Definitely there needs to be support groups for women and parents who have experienced child loss, so they can cope with it and deal with it and get through it. And again, just as Quinn mentioned, there's celebrities who have experienced this. You know, people may have been shocked to see that Beyonce experienced losing a child. One of the women that we see to be so fit and so wealthy and, you know, above everything that regular people may go through, but this is something that she experiences as well. So it's not just regular folks who experience these things. This experience can touch everybody. And most recently, we've seen the news, Chrissy Teigen, who has experienced child loss. So I'm going to put some resources that I find and some information in the description box. If anybody's looking for support, looking for help, or just looking for more research and understanding on the topic, I will put some reputable links in the description box for you to check out. And if you would like to share your story, please feel free to do so in the comment section. You can reach out to me on my Facebook page at Motherhood in Black Podcast, also on Instagram at Motherhood in Black, and on Twitter at Momhood in Black. And we also have an email, which is motherhoodinblack@gmail.com.